for being here and being willing to subject yourself to my speech for the next 30 minutes. You get free lunch, so I guess that's a good perk. So if you don't know me, my name's Ashley. I do the marketing for Shukla Medical. I've been here almost a whole year, not quite yet, and I'm going to talk today about hearing loss and cochlear implants and what it's like being deaf at 30, because being deaf is not just for your grandma. A little about me, aside from marketing, I'm pretty musically inclined. I'm a swing dancer. I'm a musician. I've been a musician for 19, going on 20 years, all while being deaf. So that's me in the bottom corner dancing. So what is hearing loss? You guys know what hearing loss is. It's when you can't hear what you're supposed to be able to hear. There are different causes or different things that are related to hearing loss. It can be as simple as having blockage inside of your ear, like if you're 2 and you shove a Lego in there. Or sometimes you're born with a flap of skin in your middle ear, and that's an actual obstruction. That can be solved with surgery or tweezers if you're really lucky. Hearing loss can also be caused by damage to the inner ear, which is what I have, and that's solved with aid technology, hearing aids, something to amplify the sound, or a cochlear implant. Another cause of hearing loss is brain deafness. If you can't hear well, the part of your brain that's supposed to tell what's coming in from your ear doesn't develop right. So sometimes people who get hearing aids or implants very late in life, if they've been deaf for a long time, won't get as much use out of them as somebody who was born hearing and then lost it later. You can go to speech therapy or hearing therapy to try and learn how to hear, get your brain to hear, but it doesn't always work. So about 15% of American adults have some trouble hearing. For disabling hearing loss, the percentage is smaller, the people who need hearing aids. Adults 75 and up, 50% of them ought to be wearing hearing aids. And as you go down to younger people, fewer and fewer percentages are going to need hearing aids. The smallest statistic I have is that 2% of adults 45 to 54 have disabling hearing loss. They don't have statistics for me. I'm too young. So how hearing works. Sound happens out somewhere in the world, right, and creates vibrations in the air. Those vibrations enter your ear through your ear canal. They hit these little bones, the stapes, the anvil. They create pressure against your eardrum, which creates more vibration and send it into your inner ear, your cochlea. It's filled with fluid and lots of tiny little cells, kind of like little hairs that vibrate when those sound vibrations are pushed into the cochlea. And then your auditory nerve, which aligns with the cochlea, picks up those signals, sends it to your brain, and you hear stuff. Usually hearing works. For some people, it doesn't. So what causes it? We talked a little bit about physical obstructions already. Sometimes it's excessive noise exposure, which is what they think caused mine probably, but they're not quite sure. Loud noises can create hearing loss. Sometimes it's a reaction to medications. Certain medications will cause damage to the inner structures of your ear. It's not that prevalent, but it can happen. Or a very difficult disease, if you get meningitis, that messes up all kinds of things, including your inner ear, that delicate structure. Or you just get old. It's just a thing that happens. So like I said, for me, they don't really know. Nobody knows why I have hearing loss. Maybe music. I don't know. I did marching band for a lot of years, and that stuff is loud. So, but they haven't been to, I'm sorry? I was not born with it. I'll talk a little bit more about that, and definitely will be answering questions at the end. If you can't tell from the whole presentation, I'm absolutely open to talking about all of this. So we'll get there. Alrighty. Hearing loss. What does hearing loss look like? The obvious stuff people know about, the ringing that happens in your ears. It's called tinnitus. And sometimes it's constant for some people. Sometimes it's just in bursts of 5 minutes or so. Sometimes it's multiple sounds. I have ringing in my ears all the time. Silence is not silent for me. But I hear it all the time. I tune it out. So other obvious things, asking others to repeat themselves. not responding when your name is called. If somebody calls me from across the room and I'm not looking at them, I probably didn't hear you. I'm not even going to look up. Don't be offended, please. Using subtitles on TV, difficulty using the phone. And then there are components to hearing loss that we don't even think about, such as having trouble remembering names, which I do because if I can't hear exactly how your name is pronounced, I can't imagine how it's spelt, and then I can't remember it later. That information is just not there. Difficulty paying attention. It can be hard to focus when you can't hear because your brain is doing so much extra work to fill in the missing pieces, which can lead to increased tiredness, especially after heavy social events. You're paying attention to so many different people speaking and you're not getting all the information. I've left classes in university and had to go take a nap after an hour of trying to learn French because I just couldn't tell what was going on. The funny thing about these things is you don't always connect it with the thought of hearing loss if you don't already know that you have hearing loss. I was 20 years old when I found out that I had any degree of hearing loss, and it had been building up for nobody knows how many years before then. And I was just coping. My brain was adapting. I was learning to lip read and didn't know it. I had started using captions on TV, which in retrospect should have been telling, but I didn't know. I thought it was just a quirky thing that I liked because I'm 20. Why would I be deaf? And then I had a sound come up. My fire alarm was running out of batteries. And there was this beeping sound in my apartment. And I had no idea where it was coming from. And it was driving me nuts. It took me 2 weeks to find it. And I finally found the smoke detector running out of batteries above my bedroom door. It's like, oh, that's what it is. And then I looked at it this way and I couldn't hear it. And then I looked at it this way and I could hear it again. And I thought, oh, something might be wrong. So I went and got tested at 20 in the middle of college as a French major with a music performance minor. And they gave me hearing aids that day. I was already severely hearing impaired. Now the word is profound hearing loss. So these things can come up, and unless you're looking for them or expecting to find hearing loss, it can be difficult to identify that that's what's going on. So what is it like not to be able to hear? Some things are great. I can sleep through anything because I don't hear it. No crying babies on airplanes. If I turn my hearing aids off, literally cannot hear. It's great. Fire alarms are silent. I cannot hear the fire alarm go off. That's maybe not a perk, but when they're testing it, it works out for me. And then to wake up, I use a vibrating alarm. I've got my fancy Fitbit that vibrates. And I wake up because I can't hear the alarm go off. In terms of understanding speech and what I hear when I'm getting words from you guys, if you think about it like autocorrect, but 10 years ago when the technology was awful and Siri had no idea what you were saying and it would totally misunderstand, that's basically what I hear. And then I have to, like, internally in my brain, look at it and figure out, okay, what is this person actually saying? Because they're not talking about velociraptors in the park, obviously. Context is everything. If I know what somebody is talking about, it's way easier to fill in those clues. It's like doing a puzzle. You're doing a puzzle with 2,000 pieces, and I have, 50 of them. I've got 50 pieces of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and I have to guess where the other pieces go. If I have the picture on the front of the box, it's way easier to do that job, right? So context is everything. Also, who needs consonants? I don't hear consonants. I hear vowels. If you look at this graph over here, it's a typical audiogram. So how it works is along the top axis is the frequency of sound, so like how low-pitched or high-pitched a sound is. And then on the vertical axis, these are very soft, quiet sounds, and these are very loud sounds. So you can see there are a couple pictures of like a piano is pretty loud and right in the middle. Helicopter is a very high frequency noise and super crazy loud. Leaves falling are a little bit high pitched but very, very soft. This thing in the middle is called the speech banana by professionals. That's a real term. And it holds all the sounds of speech, the sounds that we make when we're talking. Certain sounds like S and TH are very high pitched. And if you have hearing loss, you cannot hear those without hearing aids. A lot of vowels are much lower in frequency, so they're easier to hear. So that's how that works. With that in mind, this is my audiogram. This is what my hearing looks like. So it's the same deal. Low pitch sounds and high pitch sounds, soft sounds to very loud sounds. This gray is the normal range of hearing. This is what most of you guys can hear. And this shows basically how loud each sound has to be in order for me to perceive it. In my right ear for the R, or my left ear, or with hearing aids. Granted, this was 2 years ago, so it's worse now. So how can you help? There are things that I do to help myself hear better, and there are things that my friends can do to help me hear better too. So things that I do, if I can avoid a phone call, I will. I will email you or text you. And when I'm meeting new people and they ask my phone number, I say, okay, but do not call me. Please text me. It's just better. I repeat words back when I'm listening to kind of help the conversation go along, and that way somebody can catch me if I've misheard. Keep the lights on. I can't hear when it's dark because I have to read your lips. If it's too dark, I won't be able to hear you. And then I'll ask for help. If I'm really having trouble, I'll just say, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Things that my friends do that help me, they don't shout. Being louder will not help. It's a clarity issue, not a loudness issue. So speaking clearly is very important. Making visual contact before you start speaking to me is very important so that I know to pay attention. Otherwise, it's so soft, I don't always know to pay attention to you. Keeping mouth and lips visible for lip reading. So like talking like this with your hand in front of your mouth. Lots of people do that. I hate it. Please don't. It's not great. Or if you're asked to repeat, please do repeat. And sometimes it's very helpful to repeat using different words so that there are more pieces to the puzzle to help fill in what the context is that I'm missing. Alternative solutions for hearing better, get hearing aids. Some people don't get hearing aids because they feel uncomfortable about it. Only 16% of adults who could benefit from hearing aids have ever used them, which is astronomically small. They create such a big benefit. It amplifies sound. It gives you back sound that you're missing. It's programmable to you. My hearing aid that I still wear pumps in higher frequencies, louder than low frequencies, because that's what I need to hear. And it makes the world accessible again. I can hear birds, and I can hear people whispering, and probably basic speech comprehension. For me, it's a little more complicated because my hearing loss is more. But for the past 10 years, I've been wearing hearing aids. So this is my first pair made by a company called Siemens. They were great. They were uncomfortable. Those ear molds are awful. This is the pair that I've been wearing for the past 5 years. They're cute and red, and I love them, and they've done a lot for me. But at this point, they're not helping as much. My hearing has dropped too far, and these are no longer the right solution for me. So what comes after that is a cochlear implant. So what the heck is a cochlear implant? I'm wearing one. If you haven't seen it, you're welcome to come and stare. I don't mind. So there are two parts to a cochlear implant. There's the internal receiver with the electrode array. So this is under the skin on my head. This is a little magnetic piece of metal that holds the outside part on. And then this long piece of silicone it's hard to see because the picture is small, I'm sorry, but it's got tiny electrodes in it that emit electricity. And they put that right in your inner ear, in the cochlea, the little snail shell looking thing. And the electrodes fire off, and the auditory nerve feels it and transmits that information to your brain. Outside, which is the part that you see that I'm wearing, is the processing unit. So this is the transmitter, and it fits on my head with a magnet. It's connected by a cable to the processor. So the top half here it's basically a computer chip. It's connected to the speakers, and it takes in sound from the outside and does computer magic to tell the electrodes what to do, and then sends that information inside. The whole bottom half is a battery. The battery is huge. It lasts me 13 hours, so if I'm doing something cool that night, I bring my backup battery because it won't last all day. So inside, here's kind of a view of where the electrodes get placed inside the cochlea. So the way sound works is different areas in your cochlea perceive different frequencies of sound. So very high-pitched sounds are perceived up here, and the lowest, lowest, lowest bass, you'll hear it all the way in here. And based on the location in your ear where those vibrations reached, your brain knows what sound it just heard. So you put in the electrodes and it creates stimulation along all of those points and kind of fills in the blanks that we're missing because your inner ear isn't working right. So how do you get a cochlear implant? You have to be deaf enough. I've been testing to get a cochlear implant for the past 5 years, and last year I was finally approved. I am 40% deaf, or 40% hearing or worse in both ears with hearing aids in. So you basically have to be socially non-functional before they'll give you one. But then you can get one. Surgery takes only 2 to 3 hours, and then you go home same day. I was lucky enough that my very sweet mother came and took care of me, which I needed because I looked a little rough right after. And recovery was more rough than I thought it was going to be. There's a lot of swelling. The vertigo is crazy. It feels like you're on a ship in a hurricane. Everything went numb. My tongue went numb. I lost taste in my tongue for about 2 months. Just the left half of it, not the right half. And my ear is still a little bit numb. I'm still waiting for that to come back. The other thing that happens with surgery is that any residual hearing that you have left over that maybe you were using hearing aids for, it usually kills it because that structure is so small and delicate. When they put the implant in there, it just damages the rest of it too badly and you can't hear anymore, which is true. I hear really nothing in my left ear now. Truly, truly nothing, not just profoundly nothing. Thanks, Dad. So my dad was there, and he took some sweet pictures. Here's me and my mom and dad on activation day, which is what we're about to get to, the day they turn it on. So they're very excited for me. There's me and my audiologist. This is Carmelo, and he's the best. He takes care of me like I'm one of his own children. And then my dad took this picture of me that I hate. I think it's not flattering, but he loves it, of the moment that they turned it on. And I was hearing things with the implant. The activation day. Everybody's experience is different. Some people are able to understand speech right away. Some people just hear electronic beeping and it doesn't make sense. For me, it was like a flea playing a glockenspiel inside of my ear. It was a little weird. It sounded kind of like Tinkerbell from the cartoon, just shouting at me, happening with sound that I was hearing, but it didn't make sense to me. After a couple of weeks, things started to normalize. Everybody sounded like they were on helium. You all sounded terrible. I just didn't want to say anything. Now, I've had it 2 months now. It's been turned on. I've had it inside of me for 3 months. So now it's starting to sound normal. I'm getting used to it. People don't sound as weird anymore. It's getting a lot better. So I wear this every day, and it's amazing. This is an x-ray of the implant inside of me, and they've told me that somewhere in here they can see where the implant is. I have trouble. But I think what's happening is this is the silicone thread that's put in, and then I think right here, this little curl is showing it inside my inner ear. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to it. But anyway, that's inside my head. So now things that have changed. Social interactions are way better. Accents are okay, and I can hear them now. I can talk to people when I'm going dancing. And Super says I don't look stressed out when he comes to my desk anymore, so that's great. My favorite songs and symbols. There are things happening in music that I had no idea. And now when I dance, it's different because I hear more of the music. I learned that everything beeps. Everything beeps. It's terrible. Why would they do that? It's been so great having things beep. And have you ever really listened when you open a can of pop? It's just, there's this little like pop sound that happens when you press the metal down, like when you just pull up the tab. And then you can hear it ripping through the metal, and there's that like that happens, and it's just, I'm actually gonna make myself cry. It's a crazy sound, and if you haven't paid attention, because it's just a freaking can of soda, listen to your can of soda. There are some things I'm still figuring out. I'm still figuring out phone conversations. I still use my right ear, which has a little bit of hearing in it, because I'm still getting used to hearing voices just with implant. Still figuring out how to wear my hair. This is the best I've got right now. But I'm getting there. It's going to keep getting better. So that's my story. Thank you for listening. And I'm here for any questions. I will say, though, if you have questions and you're in the back row, you need to move and come up here so that I can hear you better. So, yeah. Yeah, Bradley.
So, is it like Bluetooth? How do you get a processor to?
Yeah, so I think it's a proximity thing. So the transmitter is held against my skin with a magnet and attaches or connects to the magnetic component under my skin. And the proximity of those two wire coils transmits power for the implant and the information. It sounds like magic to me. I don't totally get it, so I can't explain it any better than that. But that's what it is.
Bluetooth with the phone and other things.
I can. I have a separate device that gives me Bluetooth connectivity. It's like it has Bluetooth capability, and then it has like radio transmission, I guess, to the implant, and then I can hear somebody right inside of my head. It's a little weird. So, yes.
When you say you got approved for the surgery, was that with the medical insurance?
Yes, for medical insurance. You have to be deaf enough before insurance will call it a medically necessary procedure. Right. Yeah.
Do you plan to get the other side?
Do I plan to get the other side? People ask me that a lot. I haven't even thought about it. Partially because surgery is a big deal and it's expensive. My bank account's not great right now, but that's okay. Part of it's because I'm doing really well right now with a combination. I have a hearing aid in my right ear still, and I don't have a lot of hearing, as you saw, but I have just enough, and I've been using it so well for so long. I know how to use it, and it gives me sounds that I'm not perceiving with the implant yet. And because the surgery makes you go completely deaf in the implanted ear, I'm really hesitant to do the other ear and lose the rest of that hearing because I really rely on both kinds of sounds right now. And Tosh?
Okay, you know what I might ask. How is your dancing different from before, or has it changed the way that you listen to music with your dance?
How is my dancing different from before?
The music hasn't changed in any way, because I think...
Yeah, I think... Because I've been dancing for 3 years, and I've worked very hard at it, so I've reached a certain level of skill with it. I think it's just changed the parts of music that I'm able to react to, because I can hear different instruments that I wasn't able to hear. But before I could hear the bass, I could hear the piano or guitar playing, but I had trouble with saxophone or clarinet sounds. It's a lot of jazz, because it's swing dancing, you know. So now I can hear more of what's going on with those higher pitched instruments. So now if I choose, I can dance with the saxophone voice instead of the piano voice. And it's nice to have that extra choice. Yes?
The audio graph that you showed us, the left ear, right ear, and amplified with your hearing aid.
It's somewhere.
I think it showed that you were missing a lot of the higher pitched sounds.
Right. That's exactly what it shows.
That was with the aid. What about with the implant? Is that
with the implant? I thought about putting it in my presentation and I didn't. We haven't tested it again recently, and my comprehension with it has improved astronomically since I got it. But within, I think the first day when they put it in, just in terms of perceiving sounds, not understanding them, my graph was still like this without anything on, but then when they turned on the implant, there's a straight line right across at the 40 decibel mark of what I could perceive. And that was day one. And my perception has gone up. So conceivably, I can probably hear something like all in here right now. Understanding it is different from perceiving it, getting my brain to make sense of it. But I can hear them, which means eventually I will learn how to hear it. Yeah?
You said you were a musician. What type of instrument did you do?
Yeah, so I played French horn all the way through school, from 6th grade until now. I haven't really picked it up in a while, but we'll count those years. I played French horn all through school.
Do you think that had any problem?
It probably did. I think it is unusual for somebody to be as affected by loud noise as I have. You know, there are plenty of people who did marching band all through school who do not need a cochlear implant. But they've said there's probably something in my genetics that just makes me more susceptible to noise-related hearing damage. So because of that, and then being in marching band and being in concert and orchestra and all of those environments, they're saying that that probably did most of the damage. But again, we're not sure. I can remember being 11, before I even started being a musician and playing music for real, thinking it was really funny that I couldn't hear my digital watch alarm go off. And now knowing what I know, thinking back, that wasn't just funny, that was probably telling. So it was already happening. I just didn't know. I was 11. Right. What do I know? So, but it definitely contributed, for sure. Anybody else? Anything? Or if you have questions later, you're welcome to come and find me. Like I said, I'm really open about it, if you can't tell. So I'm all about it. Thank you again for coming and listening. I really appreciate you guys being here and listening so nicely. One more question? I have one more question.
Just more of a statement more.
Yeah.
My dad had both ears cochlear implants.
Sure.
And a month apart. Or shortly. Because
sure.
Insurance, yeah. But he could hear a clock ticking from your distance to there.
Oh, yeah, that happens now.
Yeah.
I hate it. Yeah. All right, thank you, guys.